Hey there, musicians of the world and my fellow cellists of the orchestra. Today we're going to be learning about one of the most important things that we have to be able to do as cellists, and that's to play with a straight bow. Playing with a straight bow is actually a lot harder than it looks, but I know you guys are going to do it because you guys are my amazing cello superheroes, right? Let's get after it. Right now I'm playing with a nice straight bow. But I bet you've all had problems doing that, right? We all have a tendency for our bow to get crooked and go all over the place, and we don't want that to happen, do we? We get a really bad sound when that happens. So how do we practice playing with a straight bow? Well, we do it with something I call the invisible cello exercise. Before we get into that, let's revisit our bow hold a little bit. So here we have our cello bow. Anybody remember what this part of the cello bow is called? I'll give you a hint. It's the same name as a small little green animal that jumps around everywhere. Yes, that's right, a frog. This is the frog of our cello bow. Now, first thing we have to do is make sure we have the right shape of our hand when we touch the bow, when we hold the bow. And we're going to focus on our knuckles, on those first lines on the inside of our hand, on these lines right here, okay? On this hand, on those first lines. And what we want to be able to do to engage the bow is we are going to make sure that these first lines are on the frog like that. Okay, and then we have the bow like that. We're not violinists, right? So we have to have more parts of our fleshy part of our hand on the bow. A violinist can hold their bow like this. Why? Because the bow is a lot lighter. Well, we play bigger instruments with bigger strings, so we need to have a more firm grip on the bow. Again, we're going to grab it with those first lines at the first knuckle of our hand, and that's going to be the basic way we're going to hold the bow. But let's get into this a little bit more. So what about the shape of the bow hand? Well, we want to be able to apply pressure on the bow. We do this by rotating our hand towards the end of the bow, towards the tip, right? That's called the tip. We want to rotate our hand towards that tip. We never want our hand to go this way, okay? We never want to do that. That's what we call bad technique. Good technique is rotating our bow hand in towards the end of the bow. We want to have this type of an angle because this gives us the ability to apply pressure to the string when we play, okay? We never want to do this. Remember that. We never want to do this. So we want to also engage the bow. We have to engage with the bow. And how do we do that? Well, we got to make sure our pinky is adding stability here, okay? And that our thumb is underneath what I call the nook. So it's not going to be in this hole, and it's not going to be on the stick. It's going to be right in that little area right there, which I call the nook. This is how we engage the bow. And there's an even better way that I think about engaging the bow, and it's called leather, metal, circle, tip. Anybody know why? Where do we find leather, metal, a circle, and a tip? That's right, on the bow. See? We have leather. We have metal. We have a circle. And we have a tip. Leather, metal, circle, tip. Leather, metal, circle, tip. Leather, metal, circle, tip. Okay? So you probably know where I'm going with this. We want to make sure that each one of our fingers is touching either leather, metal, circle, and tip. Leather, metal, circle, tip. Okay? And that's going to look just like this. Leather, metal, circle, tip. Now what about our thumb again? Remember, our thumb is right in the nook. We need to have that thumb there so that the bow can't be pulled out of our hands, all right? We never want to have a light grip on the bow. We don't want to be too tense, but we can't have that bow pulled out of our hand. So always remember, leather, metal, circle tip. Now once we have that shape, again, we want to pivot towards the end of the bow, have our pinky here for stability. We have this nice angle here, and that bow isn't going anywhere. Nobody's pulling that bow out of my hand, right? So that is how we engage with the bow, how we have a good shape on our bow hand, and now we can get at the heart of our lesson, which is how to bow straight. So now we are going to move on to the actual exercise called invisible cello, or as I like to call it, ghost cello, right? Because we have no cello here, but we're still practicing our bow hold and how to get a straight bow hold. And once we're able to do this without the cello, when we add the cello, it's going to be all the more easier. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our arms straight. We have our bow hold, right? Like we learned earlier, have that little angle in there with our bow hold. We are engaging the bow. We're going to take our straight arm and we are going to karate chop our wrist. Okay, so the wrist is hanging like this. Next thing we are going to do is karate chop our elbow. Karate chop that elbow, okay? We're going to lower our arm a little bit. Now we're going to straighten our bow. Okay, so we have our wrist down, our arm is down. There's not a lot of tension in our arm. We are going to take our left hand. We are going to put our left hand on our left knee. Okay? Left hand on the left knee and touching the stick. Our left hand is touching the stick like this, okay? Our left hand is touching the stick, and we are just going to draw the bow back and forth. Back and forth. Remember, the stick is touching our left hand. We are drawing the bow back and forth. That is the first step. Now, let's pick up our bow again. Let's make sure that we have karate chopped our wrist. Let's karate chop our elbow once again. And now we are going to create the tunnel with our left hand, the tunnel, okay? We are going to put a curved hand, a tunnel on our left hand, and we are going to draw the bow through the tunnel, touching our hand, still touching our hand. Okay, now for step three. Step three, we are going to create our tunnel, but the stick is not going to touch our hand. The stick and the bow is going to go through our tunnel, but it is not going to touch anything. All right, this is a fun little game. So once again, let's break, karate chop our wrist, karate chop our elbow, put our tunnel on our left wrist, and let's draw the bow through our tunnel. Oh, I touched it. I touched the side of my hand. We do not want to touch the hand. As much as possible, try not to touch the hand, okay? Draw it through, do not touch the hand, okay? That is the invisible or the ghost cello exercise. So now that we've done the ghost cello, the invisible cello exercise, we've worked on our bow grip, we've worked on just holding the bow, holding the stick straight, drawing the bow across our body straight. Once we actually can now put the bow on the cello, boy, that feels good, doesn't it? We don't have to hold anything anymore. The bow is resting on the cello. Now we can draw across the cello, and we have a straight bow. We have a straight bow. Why do we have a straight bow? Because we did such a great job with our invisible ghost cello exercise. So that's the invisible ghost cello exercise, everybody. That's the way we're going to work on getting a straight bow across the strings, get a beautiful sound, the way we're going to be able to get a beautiful tone on the cello. Happy practicing, my fellow cellists of the orchestra, and I'll see you next time.